Hello, I'm Holland Timmins, also known as the Connoisseur, and today I will be reviewing Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, written and directed by George Lucas, released in 1999, to much hype and praise among Star Wars fans, and then disillusionment, much like Episode 7, so anyway. As you can see, here is the Steelbook with Darth Maul, played by Ray Park. And right here is the poster artwork. So there you can see Liam Neeson, Natalie Portman, Jake Lloyd, Ewan McGregor, and the other characters. Open it up, I removed the disc so you could see the Jedi Council looking at Anakin. Yeah, so that's the case. Yeah, so let's talk about the Blu-ray. The picture looks super nice. All the CG has been upgraded by Lucasfilm ILM. So all the CG that people used to say looked fake, if you have an HD TV, now looks super real. So there's that. And there's a crawling text talking about the Trade Federation creating a blockade across the small planet of Naboo, and two Jedi arrive to settle things, and they immediately try to assassinate the Jedi. So the Jedi escape to Naboo, and there's a whole invading army, and they run into Jar Jar Binks, who may or may not be a Sith. I'll get into that in the Clone Wars. But as things look, it's pretty damning. He may actually be a Sith, but I'll get into that later. Particularly in the Clone Wars, where it's particularly damning that he is a Sith. So they go to the Gungan city underwater, where they meet Boss Nass, and they are provided transport to go through the planet's core to get to the capital of Naboo, and which they do with much trial and error. And they meet up with the Queen, who's being forced to sign a treaty that makes the invasion legal. They free the Queen, they stop the droids from sending them to an internment camp. They meet R2-D2, who helps them get across the blockade, but the hyperdrive is damaged, so they stop by Tatooine, which is controlled by the Hutts, and there they meet an impressive little boy with a midichlorian count that's off the charts, who actually may be the chosen one. He's a pilot, a mechanic, and he goes in pod races. Now, he is a slave along with his mother, Shmi Skywalker. They also meet Watto, who's like this Troydarian who's immune to Jedi mind tricks and doesn't take Republic credits, and he has the only parts they need on the entire planet to get off. He owns Anakin and Shmi Skywalker. Shmi asks the Jedi to free her son so he can have the life of a Jedi and not that of a slave. And so they decide to trick Watto into financing the race, the pod race, where Anakin pilots his pod, which he secretly built. And of course there's this really badass pod race against his nemesis Sebulba, a Doug. And yeah, this really badass race sequence happens, much like Ben-Hur, and Anakin, of course, wins the race because he's like really connected to the Force, and he is freed. They get the parts they need to repair the ship, and they go to Coruscant, where they go to the Intergalactic Senate, which is about as useful as going to the US Senate. nothing happens. So, believing democracy is broken, much like it is now. Qui-Gon brings Anakin to the Jedi Council, proclaiming a strong possibility that he is the chosen one, destined to bring balance to the Force. But his future is clouded to the Jedi Council. Sensing much power from the boy and much fear, they are afraid he might turn to the dark side, though they are unsure. So they decide to deny the boy training. Qui-Gon, of course, decides to disobey the council, but with much more pressing matters to attend to, they decide to stay the conversation for now. They decide to return to Naboo and engage in the first war of what would become known as Star Wars. The Gungan people, who were introduced earlier by Jar Jar, decide to fight the droid army. The droid army looks super realistic, and in the Blu-ray they have the colors that they would have in Episode 3. George Lucas went back and changed that so that they would have the color ranks. Just really cool, actually, that they did that. Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan Kenobi are busy fighting the Sith Darth Maul, played by Ray Park. What's interesting about the fight is not only are they two Jedi fighting a single Sith with a dual lightsaber, not only is Duel of the Fates by John Williams playing in the background, which makes it even more epic, and the visuals make it epic, but really what makes it unique is that Darth Maul moves like any other Sith or Jedi in the entire Star Wars universe. The way he moves is awesome. Anyway, so after a lot of fighting, Qui-Gon is killed, which makes Obi-Wan quite literally livid with anger, and he goes after Darth Maul, and the fight is really fast-paced. Actually, it was so fast-paced it didn't register on camera, so George Lucas told them to slow it down a bit. So the super fast fight you see on camera was actually faster, but it had to be slowed down. And it's still super quick, which is amazing, actually. And of course, after Obi-Wan slices Darth Maul in half, he goes flying down in 2 pieces down the shaft. Anakin blows up the control ship, which saves the Gungans, who were defeated in battle. Surprise, surprise, they were defeated. But Anakin saves the day. Padme manages to capture Newt Gunray and the other Confederates who are working for Darth Sidious. Finally, there's a big celebration at the end after the entire war is over. Anakin, who was actually denied becoming a Jedi, is actually allowed to finally become a Jedi Padawan. Let's talk about the perceived racism by certain people online. They say Jar Jar is racist because he's Rastafarian. I can see the dialect. He's a simpleton, or at least he's trying to portray himself as a simpleton. And it works really well because it fooled everyone. I think Jar Jar's a Sith, and I'll get to that in later reviews. I didn't think Jar Jar was a Sith until it was pointed out to me, and as I look at Star Wars more and more, it's pretty damning that he is a Sith. As for Watto, the Trodarian, who was Anakin's owner while he was a slave, people say it's anti-Semitic because he's like corrupt and he's only interested in money, and he has a trunk which is meant to portray the nose. I think people are just digging for something that isn't there. As for the aliens that are creating the blockade, they're dressed in Asian clothing and they have an Asian dialect, but I don't think that makes it racist. It's just a dialect and a look. A look and a dialect does not equal racism. I'll get into the racism in Star Wars in a later review, because I believe there is racism, just not in this movie. Now, people have a problem with the concept of midichlorians. I don't know why. The Force is something mystical. It connects to every living being across the galaxy. Midichlorians don't cause it, it only measures it. And Anakin has a midichlorian count that's off the charts, so he's very connected to the Force. More powerful than any Jedi in history. Now, what did I think of the movie? Now, I saw it when it first came to theaters, and I thought it was an entertaining flick. And seeing it now with the improved visuals, I still think it's an entertaining flick. Anyway, what would I rate the movie? I would give it a 7 out of 10. It's an entertaining popcorn flick. It's a Star Wars film. Is it the best Star Wars film? No, but it's not the worst. I've actually seen the worst Star Wars film. This isn't it. Did this ruin Star Wars or my childhood? No, I grew up with this film. I was like 14 when it came out. This did not ruin Star Wars. This did not ruin my childhood. Actually, I think it sets up everything just as it needs to. So, yeah, so that's my review. If you like, comment, subscribe, whatever. I will go on to review episode 2 next. I'll let you know what I think of that. But, as always, have a nice day.